There you go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Octant community meeting. Today is July 28, 2021. And remember that if you cannot join live, you will find the recordings in the YouTube channel. And also, the meeting notes are moved to GitHub discussions. We try to keep the notes for the last two meetings here in HackMD. For older notes, you can go and find them in GitHub discussions. Feel free to add yourself in the organization you represent to the meeting agenda. And let's go to status updates. First one, I added this item here. So according to the plan, that 23 release is planned for early next week. I don't know if someone from the team would like to share something more about that, current status and progress for this release. Open up the project page. Here it is.
Yeah, so as David said, it's planned for it'll either be Friday the 30th, or Monday the 2nd, and yeah, that's it. A lot of good stuff here in progress. As a reminder, our theme for this release is around object status and improving the visibility of different status and conditions on objects and making things just a little bit more friendly and easier to see. So yeah, a lot of good work happening, and I'm very excited about the outcome of this release. And yeah, I think the plan is to probably do a blog post that does an overview of all of the various changes that we'll ultimately have around project status for this release. So you should see a summary of all of those changes sometime, probably the week following. So there's the week of the release would be the following week. We'll do like a summary update blog post type thing. And as a reminder, just jumping the agenda a little bit, there is no community meeting in next week.
Yeah,
And yeah, most of the team, all of the team is on holiday next week. So.
for sure. Yeah, thank you so much. This is going to be a really interesting release. It will be really helpful for users, I believe. Okay, next item. Uh, we have our first official adopter organization. What it means, we know Octant is used by many developers and organizations around the globe. Uh, but this is the first organization who has publicly shared how they use Octant, and they have sent their company logo to be added to the adopters file. I believe the test have the checks have passed for the PR. Uh, I was wondering if I had so many errors in a PR that is just adding text and an image, what will happen if I will code? But I see that all checks have passed, and we will have the information from Teresky up there. Who's Teresky? Teresky is a top technology solutions provider with headquarters in Israel and also offices in New York, and they use Octant in a daily basis. And also their customers use Octant to be able to debug, troubleshoot, and in general manage Kubernetes environments. So thank you, Terra Sky. We keep working to make Octant even better for you. That's great. Okay. I don't know if someone has a comment around this, or we can go to next point. Will be displaying container image manifest by Milan.
Yeah, I can go next. If you don't mind, David, can I share? Thank you. Cool. Yeah, so this is a pretty old PR. I just wanted to give a quick showcase of this new feature coming in next release. It's number 156, so it's been requested almost exactly 2 years ago. So I've been working on this for a while, and if you look at the images, there's a lot of different types of images, different schema versions, and different ways of doing that. It kind of depends on a image order, what kind of manifest they will choose. And there's a really good tool out there that displays all that information for images. It's called Scopio. And basically what it does, you pass in the image and it can give you the image manifest back. It can give you the configurations, layers, all kind of stuff. It can also copy the images, and it's doing it's inspecting the image without pulling it down, which is pretty cool. So what I ended up doing, I discovered that this tool is using this containers image Go package, and I end up using the same package to display image information inside the Octant. So the way that's gonna happen now is inside the container part of the pod overview page. We always displayed the image and image ID, but now I added those two fields. One of them is image manifest, and the other one is a configuration. And to display those, I'm using Sam's JSON viewer, because those are all JSON files. And so basically they're just displayed the way they are. And you can see that this one has, you can see what schema version it has. You can see all the manifests. For each manifest, you can dive in and see different kind of information. And things are even more interesting if you get in a configuration level. You can see the config for that image and cool stuff like, for example, this one has exposed port 80 and environment variables, like versions and things like that. And those are really, really interesting for troubleshooting and discovering problems, because, you know, sometimes through environment variables to image, you're supposed to pass in like database information and stuff like that. And if that doesn't work, you can just quickly dive in and you know, and see what's going on. So yeah, so this is using the JSON viewer. I did a little update there so you can display them collapsed. I think by default they should be collapsed. And also you'll notice that this container section now is a full width, because there's a lot of information here. And I thought displaying that full width will be more appropriate now with the image manifests. So I've been testing this quite a bit on, not only on my local kind, but if you go to our development cluster, and let me just find something. Oops.
There's no pods in the default namespace on our dev cluster.
Thank you. Yeah, let me find something more interesting, like this one here. So the information that's displayed here is it varies. I want to put, so let's go with, for example, echo. The information varies depending on the image type, on manifest type, and on image itself. So you can see this one, for example, even has the other. So if you have some issues with it, you can find the other and you know, contact him directly. And again, there's exposed ports. So this totally brings different level of troubleshooting abilities to Octant, because as a developer, sometimes you can't hit the right port, and you can trace the information all the way down to image manifest, or you can find out, oh, this is my environment variable I need to use, and things like that. So that's pretty much all I got. This is coming up, I'm hoping 23. It depends on the update of our Kubernetes library to 0.21. And once that's done, I'll have to recreate this branch. I had some issues with importing modules, but hopefully all that lines up so this can land for our next release.
This is awesome, Milan. I really like the using the JSON viewer and being able to expand and collapse it. I have two thoughts on it. One is the green text in the dark mode is a little tough to read.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I don't know how packed into the JSON viewer that is. Or
yeah,
if
but we can
it's-
definitely modify that CSS.
Okay.
I know Sam did a little bit of work there, but I can definitely expand that and make it. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's
Let
just
me show the light theme.
oh, awesome. Yeah, that's easy.
So it's a little better in.
Yeah.
light.
Yeah, definitely
sure.
better in the light theme. It's I also felt it was hard to read in the dark theme.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one is, would there be some value to an expand all, collapse all
Yes.
toggle?
Yeah, we
if
can do that.
That would be like a plus symbol or something next to the root
Right.
object
Yeah.
that just expands everything. Like, because
Yep.
that's the first thing I wanted to do was just
Just
show me the whole
have
thing.
it open. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not so familiar with JSON viewer. Maybe Sam would know better. I hope it supports that out of the box.
Yeah, and I would say that like that is definitely something where I would consider that an enhancement to the existing component. So if you go to look at it and you're like, that's more than a half hour, or then make an issue and we'll add it.
Sure.
But if we can get it in there quick, then I think that's a big win.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. We can always make another issue for that.
Sounds good.
Great.
Any other comments, questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Milan. That's a great feature for this release. Thank you. Okay,
Sure thing.
let me go back and agenda. Okay, that's great. Okay, discussion points. First one, release notes enhancements. When it's related to what Wayne was mentioning at the beginning. We have so much happening in this release that we will need more context for users so they know why is this important, how it changes the experience and troubleshooting, object status, and all of that. So according to some guidelines from the open source office here from VMware, there are some ways to make release notes more informational. We have this first wrapper with what will be a template for release notes, hopefully from this release and the upcoming releases, where we will have not only maybe the issue title and number and handle, but also a description. It doesn't have to be a full article, but a description. If it's, for example, a bug, what is the problem or the behavior these issue fixes or addresses? If it's an enhancement, basically why this is important for users. You have some reference, for example, the job of the Contour team. These are their release notes, and they have some pre-established sections and all of that. We don't plan to, take this step to this level in a single release, no. But just starting to make those release notes a little bit more informational. I don't know if Kara wants to comment something there.
Oh, just that it seemed like a bit of a heavy lift for a single developer to be responsible
Yeah.
for all the release notes and to be able to understand every single thing that had been, checked in. So, each engineer should be intimately familiar with the 2 or 3 issues that they have in this particular release. So towards the end of the release, they should be able to write a quick description for their 2 or 3 issues, write them up, and then whoever is the release engineer can compile them, but they don't have to be responsible for writing up the entire thing. And that way we'll get more comprehensive release notes, something that's a little bit more full, a little bit more descriptive for the users.
Yeah, so we do this now. We just kind of fell off the practice of it, but we have a process for all PRs technically are supposed to have a changelog entry, and that changelog entry allows the developer to expand and provide full context for above and beyond what the commit message says. And when you run the release script, it processes all the changelog entries out into a single markdown file that can then be kind of massaged and edited as needed. So I think where I'd like to start with this is encouraging people to add the extra context to their changelog entries directly, since we already have a system in place that will auto-generate a changelog file off of those unreleased changelog entries.
Oh yeah, automation for the win, for sure. I didn't realize that was already automated. So yes, as long as the changelog entries, as long as those are a little bit, as long as they are a little descriptive, then great. And then as soon as we have a tech writer who's joined the team, then they can massage it more fully.
Yeah, David, if you navigate to the Octant repo and you go to Octant changelogs and then unreleased.
Yeah. And releases.
Yeah, so changelogs.
Okay, changelogs.
Yep, and there'll be an unreleased folder. Yeah, so these are the things that are in trunk right now that have not been released yet. Most of them will just have like a short summary that maybe matches the commit message, but we can just make an effort to have developers put in more useful context into the long form message that goes in here.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you for that.
Just a quick UX point. I think release notes should either be brief, or if they are not, they should have like a summary at the top, because they're meant to be consumed very quickly. If you are upgrading, let's say you're upgrading your dependencies, you just want to glance through and see if there's something important. So if we are going to expand our release notes, I think we should have like a summary on top, where maybe with the links going towards the more detailed description below.
Sure, I'd agree with that. I want something that is, why do I care? Right? Like, what are the salient points?
Yeah,
Right.
I think avoiding getting into the territory of a release blog post, right? Like we can have a release blog post which is rich, screenshots, walkthroughs, all of that like long form stuff, and then keeping it. Here's why you care. Here's where you can go find out more if you maybe still aren't sure that you care, and then here's the short form notes.
So basically, here's why you should upgrade or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you. Okay.
By the way, looking at the chain logs, we should standardize how we are doing it, because I saw that some texts are in past, other in present. So
Yeah, that's usually one of those things that the person who generates the changelog file has to go in and tweak. We can add that as part of our review process to make sure that the messages are using the correct tense.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, next item, showing status for all objects, Milan and Felipe.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Felipe and I were pair programming yesterday on this issue with showing the more information for the persistent volume claims, actually showing incorrect information for persistent volume claims. And we discovered an interesting thing, and I will share a screen. Oops. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'll share my, if I can find it. I'll share the whole desktop. Yeah, so this is our code for displaying status. And it's kind of puzzling, and I'm not sure why we're doing it this way, but you can see basically at the
Oh,
top
I don't
we
see anything yet.
Sorry,
Oh,
Milan,
I'm sorry.
we are not seeing your screen.
I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. I found my IntelliJ.
There you go.
All right. So this is our code for displaying object status, and you'll see we have a different lookup functions depending on basically resource type. And later on we use that, and there is a piece of code here where we invoke that function, and if it's not present, we basically say this. And I think that's the problem. Problem is because if you look at this list, there's only 14 different resource types. We register 4, and for everything else, we just say, I mean, I think the more prudent thing would be say unknown or something like that. So that's why we have a lot of greens where we shouldn't have. So Felipe and I worked on that, and we realized, well, we just need to add, thing for the persistent volume claims that will fix the issues. So that fixed the particular problem, but both of us were like, oh, maybe we should do for all the resources. Maybe we should either do it for all resources or expand and say, in this case, we have no clue, right? We have no clue what is the right status.
Yeah, I think this gets into some interesting territory, specifically around the fact that everything we do is typed right now, and extending things like status or extending things like conditions requires that we add to our list of well-known types so that we can go and look at that status object or that condition object that's part of that type. And there's a long ago opened issue around moving away from typed printers and typed things in general and just embracing unstructureds and using JSON parsing to infer the information. Some of the steps around doing that have been started with this update that we're making to the conditions table, where there's actually a parse conditions method that is going through an unstructured object, parsing the JSON of it, and then looking for a specific set of fields. And if it finds those fields, it's making it and those fields are formatted how it expects, then it makes the assumption that those fields are, in this case, condition dot or status dot conditions, right? If that parses out as a slice of strings, then it says, hey, these match my assumption of what status conditions are. And I think we can do a similar thing for other parts of Octant, specifically around status and health of objects. And so in the short term, I think you're right. I think adding, extending the list to support the known types of objects that are well formatted, that we know will support fetching their status, it makes sense to add those there. I think in the long term, we probably want to look at engineering a more generic solution that, inspects the object, and then if it finds the fields that it needs to find, then it says, hey, I found status fields, so I'm going to use them.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And since this release is, you know, status oriented, it would be good to do the first step if we can, and improve this.
Yeah, I definitely think just extending the known list to make the improvement is perfectly reasonable solution here, because that's the way the world works now in Octant. So yeah, I wouldn't expect us to try to engineer the generic solution here. So yeah, I'd say move forward with it, adding.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's really important. Thank you. And also preferences storage, right? Wayne.
Yeah, so this came up as a result of some work that's being done, and I wanted to raise it here. So currently we kind of have this split brain. We have local preferences stored in the Electron side of things, and then we have server side state, which is tracked while Octant is running. An example of this is like whether you're using light or dark mode, or the number of results that show up in a table. Those are local preferences stored on the Electron side. But the filters you're looking at, or the namespace you have selected, or the context you have selected, right? Those are stored on state on the Octant side of things. So we kind of like decide what goes where. We're getting to this interesting spot where, and I think it's going to start to happen more, where we have a preference that we want to set, and we want it to be configurable, but it's used in the runtime, it's used in the server side, but we want it set from the client side. This example in particular is around the terminating threshold, right? Like how long do we want to wait before we show some extra messaging or provide some prompting to a user when something has been stuck in terminating for an extended period of time. This can be set on the client side, but then we want to persist it through the rest of Octant. And so there's kind of two ways to do this. It's either to create a preferences state manager, which we preload with so we kind of store state locally within Electron, and then when we fire up the app, we take all that state that we have stored locally and we load it into the preferences state manager on the Octant server side of things, and then interactions to that just flow through that same mechanism. Whatever we've used to load that state is also what we use to update that state as things are running. The other option is just to commit to saying like, hey, we're an Electron application. Octant knows where the file system is. It knows where the files that Electron are going to write are, and we just read it direct from the file system, right? Instead of introducing this state manager that kind of acts as a proxy for the file system between Electron and Octant. So I don't know that I don't really have a strong opinion either way. One definitely changes the it just changes kind of the reading directly from the file system one. We already do it. We do it with like kubeconfigs, for example. And then the state manager one, we already do it. As I pointed out, we do it for things like the namespace you have selected, stuff like that. So we already do both. I don't have a strong opinion towards one or the other, but I just wanted to get that idea out there so people could think about it. And if other people have strong opinions, bring them up. I think we can talk about it now, but also I would look at opening a discussion in GitHub discussions to go through some iterations of pros and cons.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one, and I've seen preferences getting really complex on projects I worked before, so it would be good to make a good, solid foundation to build this on. And one thing I would definitely advocate for is having a single source of truth, and even that. It almost doesn't matter where it is. It could be Electron store, could be on the backend side, but as long as you have a single source of truth, it definitely makes things a little more robust, easy to maintain and expand. And to add to what you said, Wayne, we also have on a client, not only we use Electron Store, but if you're running a browser, we use the browser local storage for that instead of Electron Store. So currently we almost have those, depending on usage, we have the 3 different ways of doing it. I mean, the way this is done on client, it's basically inside 2 methods that decide, or if I'm in Electron, I'll use Electron Store, or otherwise, otherwise I'll use the browser storage. So it's not that complex, but it would be good to consolidate that at a single point.
Yeah, I mean, long term, the deprecation of the CLI version of Octant is going to result in us no longer needing to support both the Electron and web browser states. So I think for this conversation, we can just focus solely on, does this live on the Electron side or does this live in the server? To your point of having a single source of truth, that kind of leans me towards it being on the Electron side, because even if we load it into some state manager on the server side, all of the preferences and settings will be happening. Like when that Octant server goes away, unless it's going to persist the file somewhere, when it starts back up, it doesn't know any of those settings again. So it's almost as if it naturally kind of wants to live on the Electron side.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, they can also be cached on client too, right? So even if the backend goes away, yeah, I mean, I have no strong opinions where should it live, as long as it's in a single source of truth.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who wants to comment on this? No? Okay, so next step will be to create a GitHub discussion. I'll make sure that it's here in the notes so we can keep it going after the meeting. Okay, now for the open Q&A. I was having a conversation with a user from Canada last week, and he requested a feature. I asked him to file an issue, but he's yet to create it. But he was mentioning it will be great if Octant will help me find deprecated resources in the cluster. And he then pointed me to a Sanitizer tool that he has used recently with good results. Popeye, Popeye, I don't know. But in general, I brought up this here as a question because, what he mentioned led me to think about the upcoming 1.22 Kubernetes release that, as far as I understand, is going to deprecate some API resources. So in general, is this something that we should pursue in Octant? What do you think about this? No?
Seems like a good plugin idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same, that maybe this is a plugin possible. I don't know why I feel like I've run into this one recently. Somebody brought up Popeye. It's pronounced Popeye if you're interested.
Yeah, here in
super
Latin, he was
super old cartoon character.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, maybe a plugin. But I'm just not terribly familiar with it.
Yeah, more like, yeah, the tool is maybe an example, but in general, the ability to find deprecated resources in the cluster is something that we see a place for it in Octant, or no? Doesn't make any sense.
It's something we can maybe take to discussions.
Yeah,
Open it
we'll
up for discussion,
open up
whether or not it would make
discussion for
sense
this.
for a good plugin.
Mhm.
Or someone can make a proposal for it,
Okay,
and
got it.
talk about the pros and cons of it.
Right.
Or if we can find a contact at Popeye who's interested in writing a plugin.
That will be even better. Okay, awesome. Okay, yeah, we'll do. We'll create a discussion. Okay, and now from Liam, ability to hide breadcrumbs, navigation, plugin pages.
Yeah, so I guess this is more of a discussion point, but this is something I've been kind of running into a bit lately. I'm gonna just share my screen real quickly to kind of explain exactly what this is about. Hold up, just 1 second. I'm not able to share my screen yet. Let's see.
David, do you mind stop sharing so
Oh.
that Liam can share? Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right. And so yeah, so basically, the way Octant works, it inserts this kind of breadcrumb slash navigation element at the start of pretty much any page in a plugin, which is useful, but not always. And so specifically, for example, I was trying to make a new page here, and it automatically inserted this home kind of route at the start. And I'm not entirely sure why that is happening, but I feel like this isn't necessarily the most desirable solution. And especially if there's a page where you really don't need a title, it will just insert content like this at the start as well, where it basically just displays the same drop down twice. So this is obviously useful when you're using the core Octant features and there are lots of nested paths and so on. But if this is just kind of like a smaller plugin that's a module, this is, I feel like, going to be less useful. And it also kind of ties into something I noticed in general about Octant as well, is that you'll kind of see the same content 3 times in certain parts of the application, which I feel like is just kind of redundant, because we clicked on the namespaces page, and then it tells us that yes, we're on namespaces, the title is namespaces, and the title of the table is namespaces. So I feel like just giving a lot of like additional flexibility to maybe plugin authors, but also to the Octant developers in general, to enable or disable this like kind of navigation component when it makes sense, would be really useful in terms of just granting more access to information that our users care about. And especially, so this is an example of an embedded iframe, and it actually adds a bit of content to the top of the page. So were this removed, we'd be able to fit the entire iframe in, which is kind of useful because this is valuable screen real estate when you're embedding an entire web page inside another one already. So I just figured we might as well have like a bit of a few questions about how this could work, or what people kind of think about it, to kind of discuss like whether this is something that would be worth implementing, or if there are reasons that this hasn't been implemented yet. Kind of that kind of
I saw
idea
Milan
here.
nodding. I saw.
Yeah. I mean, I worked on breadcrumbs, so I feel guilty for this. So
No
yeah.
need for that.
So I definitely agree with your second point, and that's kind of been so point for me as well, but we never get to it. So I think that we should definitely fix that. At least you should remove one of those. So that is definitely no brainer. As for the plugins, so the way that the breadcrumbs work, they pull all the links from the navigation entries for the plugin. So as you registered your navigation entries, like in this case, you have a home, you have a central dashboard, and it just goes through those entries and creates the breadcrumbs. And on top of that, plugin has the last word in how those will be displayed. So if you as a plugin author want to hide them all, you can just remove that list and it will never show up. So this is how it works currently, and it can definitely be extended And you know, maybe you and I can work on that and see what would be the best way to make it a little more you know, configurable, especially for plugin authors.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see that there's value in one of those use cases where you showed in the namespace overview. You know, there's still the beginning of the breadcrumb still has a drop down that lets you, you know, quickly navigate from the drop down. So like there's still value there, even though there's that triplicate, you know, showing the title in triplicate. So
Yeah, the
but
bottom
yeah,
one
there's-
should not be displayed, definitely.
right. So there's
and we should
optimization that can be done there for sure.
Yeah, we should open issue for that, definitely.
Thank you, Liam, for bringing that up.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you so much, Liam. Okay, if there is no other Q&A, we'll go finally to the community shoutouts. Sunday, Yaroslav Pletin created or sent his first PR to Octant. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate you doing this. Once some small conflict in a file, I believe, is fixed, I believe it will be ready to go. Go here to the PR quickly. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this, Yaroslav. It's great to have contributions from our extended community. So thank you for this. Okay. Okay, anything else? Any comment, additional comment? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.